Biden supports raising your taxes. They want to raise your taxes 3, 4, or even 5 times. And on businesses, they want to put all your businesses, which is basically from a lot of standpoint, your jobs out of business. He wants to pack the court with radical far-left judges, indoctrinate your children with what they're teaching in schools, which we're ending, and we've ended. And they want to have open borders, sanctuary cities, but open borders. They want to rip down your wall. Think of this. Wants to rip down your wall. We're spending billions of dollars building one of the most incredible structures you've ever seen. It's one of the largest developments ever in the history of this country. Think of that, the wall. It's, hundreds of miles long, over 500 miles. They want to rip down your wall. It's what kept a lot of very, very sick people out of our country, and now it's keeping bad people out of our country, people that we don't want.
What that Trump said there, what could you point to and say it's not true about Joe Biden? Higher taxes, sanctuary cities, abolish borders, indoctrinate your children. I mean, they would quibble with the terminology, but all of that's true. That is what Joe Biden would do. That is what Joe Biden wants. That's what the Democratic Party wants. All true. So why is it that that's not really reflected in perception in so many of the states that are going to be in play for this election? Well, because as you know, there's going to be different messages for different groups. And oh gosh, Governor Whitmer up in Michigan, when she's not being a tyrant, oh yeah, she's making sure that Michiganders know that Joe Biden's on their side. Play 15.
I think Joe Biden's message resonates with Michiganders. We're hardworking, good people who want competent governance that looks out for us and keeps us safe. I think Joe Biden offers the kind of steady, ethical leadership that we're craving right now. And number two, the fact that they've announced that they're taking ads off makes me very suspicious. I've seen polls that have him up double digits. I've seen polls that have it in single digits. The fact of the matter is, just by them announcing that, we know that the DeVos group here in Michigan is going to backfill that to some extent. And so this is still going to be a competitive race. It is going to tighten up, and no one should be taking Michigan for granted.
That's what's going to happen. Democrats who are in the more purple and in-play states are going to be taking a message to their people of just platitudes and BS. Oh, gosh, Joe Biden, yeah, he just wants good governance and looking out for you. And Joe Biden's a moron. Really, not a smart guy. No one thinks he's a smart guy. No one thinks he's good at anything, really, other than running for Senate in a state that, and no offense to Delaware, once you kind of get entrenched there, I mean, you're kind of the senator from Delaware. There's not going to be a whole lot of challenges. So, the guy really is about as, politically is as impressive as being like the mayor of Buffalo, but he does sit in the United States, or mayor of any kind of mid-tier city. But nonetheless, Joe Biden is the offering of the Democrat Party in this year. This is what they're telling us we need to be doing. I think it's completely absurd. And he's also at the forefront of a party that right now wants to defund police. They haven't given up on this. They're still acting like this isn't the most insane policy decision of recent memory. I mean, it's one, you can argue about the virus stuff and COVID, the lockdowns. There are arguments to be had on different sides of that issue. I think that, unfortunately, hysteria has won out over reason and adult thinking. But at least there are different sides to these issues. When it comes to defunding the cops, there's no intelligent argument for, let's just, in places where they're having more violent crime and where they can't get violent crime under control, let's give police less resources and less political support to do their jobs. There's no serious argument for that. And Trump points this out. Play 18.
Biden's record can be summed up as 4 decades of betrayal, calamity, failure. Biden signed a joint manifesto with Bernie Sanders. He has an agreement with Bernie Sanders, which means Biden is now running as the most extreme left candidate in history. This manifesto, as I call it, this is far left of where Bernie was. So it was supposed to be going to the right, and it's far left. When asked whether he would defend and defund Our police, Biden said we're going to fund them. He wants to defund. He's going to defund the police. He's going to cut it way down, cut it way back. Just like in New York, they've already cut it by $1 billion, and crime is soaring in New York. Crime is soaring in Chicago. They're cutting back on their police. We are doing just the opposite. Yesterday I was in Florida, and I got the entire law enforcement group, including all the sheriffs in Florida. They endorsed Donald Trump for president. Very strong endorsement. Biden will take away your guns. He'll take away your Second Amendment. Biden will ban fracking, killing over 600,000 Pennsylvania jobs. And Biden will side with the anarchists and the agitators, the mob that you've been watching in Portland and Seattle. They want all cities to be like that.
This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Homicides are rising at a double-digit rate this year as compared to last year in 36 of America's top 50 cities. Almost 4 out of 5 cities, folks. Substantial increase in crime. The kind of increase in homicides that in any given year would give that mayor, that police commissioner concern over whether they would keep their job when the next decision is made, when the next time around. 36 out of 50 cities. And this is with a lockdown in place for months. Far fewer people on the streets. Far fewer, incidental contacts between individuals that could lead to a violent exchange. Far fewer targets for criminals to go after, and yet we're seeing big spikes in murder. This is because of the far left narrative of BLM and the Democrat Party. They have made everything worse for everyone, as I have been telling you. This is what has happened. It's not surprising. In fact, no one is surprised who is intelligent and serious that the narrative of BLM from the Democrats was in any way anything other than a disaster, right? There was no we're going to have police reform. Greater transparency for police violence is not going to stop dozens of people from getting shot on a bad weekend in Chicago. It's not going to do anything for that. We all know that. But the far left is getting their way here. There is a sense of, I think, snapback as well. There's blowback from the Trump presidency and that the left is both enraged and descendant at this point in time. And while, as I said, Governor Whitmer, oh gosh, yeah, you're going to have all these like real down-home Democrats who just, oh gosh, I want everyone to be fine. And I just want, Biden just wants to make sure you and your kids are safe. Oh, sure. They're going to be telling you all that crap. That's what they're going to say in Michigan, in Ohio, in Florida. Their Democrat surrogates are going to go out with that message. But to the base, it's going to be very different. To the base, they're going to be speaking the truth about how this is going to be the most left-wing presidency in history. It's going to be like Bernie without the burn. Play clip 3.
We're going to fight out our differences after Biden is elected. Mm-hmm. But right now, the immediate task is to come together to defeat Trump. And then, as progressives, we're going to do everything that we can to make the Biden administration the most progressive administration that it can become. But right now, my message to our supporters, hey, not only you get out to vote early, but get your friends, your co-workers, your co-students out to vote as well.
You see, Bernie Sanders' greatest vulnerability in running for president, his greatest political vulnerability, was the honesty of his positions. He is not really that different at all from the mainstream Democrat Party. In fact, he has clearly brought the mainstream Democrat Party much closer to him than the other way around. Right, look at health care, look at education, look at college, student loans, all these things. The areas now of shift in the Democrat Party have all been toward the left. There is not some rise of centrism and technocratic realism in the Democrat Party at all. That does not exist at all. What do you have? Bernie Sanders style policies. And that's why I think that's why I think Sanders here is speaking to the base in a way that they know that all they have to do is show up. Yeah, maybe they don't like Biden. No one's enthusiastic about him. They show up, they vote for this guy, and they'll get Sanders policies from a super old white dude like Sanders in that regard, who is going to put a female minority on the vice president ticket and is going to then catapult that VP to run in 4 years. And let's also be very clear. Why would Joe Biden not, a year or two into his presidency for personal or health reasons, say, I'm going to step aside and let my vice president take over now? He then becomes their absolute hero, right? He can do whatever policies the left wants. He can step aside, hand over the reins, and he will have saved, in the Democrats' eyes, saved them from 4 more years of Trumpism. That to him, and he gets to just ride off into the sunset, and they're all going to talk about how wonderful he is and how he saved the republic, and doesn't have to do anything really. He just has to show up. In a sense, it's like Biden as VP for Obama. The guy's a moron. He just has to show up, be Obama's VP, but now he gets to be the presidential contender just because he was there. He's the I just show up guy. And somehow, like magic, it keeps working for him. Just show up. Be wrong, be corrupt, be dumb, doesn't matter. Show up. And he will have the most, the most incredible opportunity to become a beloved, truly beloved Democrat figure. Now, again, I said to you, they're going to make him maybe do a lot of crazy policy stuff. We'll see. He might do that. He also might just move aside and let the left-wing VP that he picks do all of that. And he will have just been the transition piece. Either way, he wins. Minimum effort, maximum positive outcome for Joe Biden. Can't we all see how this is shaking out? It makes sense. It makes sense. Easier. If you're a far left Democrat, increasingly that's just a Democrat, but if you're somebody on the far left of the Democrat Party, it is a more easy rationalization to come out and say, vote for Joe Biden, right, in this context than it was for Hillary. With Hillary, couldn't even really do her voice there. Hillary! There we go. With Hillary, you were voting for her to be president for 8 years, and you were going to have to deal with her, hear her speeches, defend her and protect her reputation despite her unlikability, her rampant self-dealing and greed and corruption. Democrats were going to have to deal with all that. With Joe Biden, vote for Biden, but you're going to get the first female minority president out of the bargain. And you're going to fool enough people in those flyover states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, that you're going to have Biden and then give them a left-wing policy agenda. It's perfect. It's perfect. If you're a left-winger, this is really, in a lot of ways, the best possible situation for you. You'll get the policies and the legacy you want by pretending that you're offering up a moderate establishment Democrat who wants to unite the country, who is just a facade. It's just a Trojan horse, as many have been saying. I can't believe that we're losing our home that we didn't even sell. That's what Deborah said when she found out that she was the victim of home title theft, which is a crime that can actually cost you your home. Again, the way this works is not all that complicated. The bad guys find your information online, and then they forge your signature stating you sold your home to them. A lot of people don't even find out about this until the eviction notice arrives. But there's one place you can go to protect yourself from this. One group that I trust, Home Title Lock. Just go to Home Title Lock and use promo code BUCK. You can find out if you're already a victim and even get 30 free days of protection. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, use that promo code BUCK, see if your home's title has already been compromised. Home Title Lock can create a virtual barrier online around your home's title. So go to HomeTitleLock.com, use promo code BUCK today.
But the $600 is essential. It's essential for America's working families. And again, to condescend, to disrespect their motivation is so amazing how insistent the Republicans are about a working family and their $600 and how cavalier they are about other money that is going out.
Why not $1,000 a week, Nancy? I mean, come on. Why be so cavalier with people's troubles and their problems and their future. Why not $1,000 a week in COVID relief for everybody who's home? Does anyone want to try to answer that? I mean, under Democrat logic, the more money the federal government gives to people who are staying home, the more it cares about them, the more considerate and understanding and decent they are. Forget about whether that disincentivizes people going back to work. You see, Democrats fundamentally seem to think that value and wealth are created through government policy. That if the government passed a law, if Nancy Pelosi passed a law that said that everybody in America is worth $1 million and just put $1 million in a bank account for everybody, then we would all be millionaires. They never think about what that would actually mean to our monetary system, to the price of goods, to the economy, to the creation of actual wealth, goods and services, and the free transactions that those things enable and allow to create greater productivity and to make us all better off, right? You go to the grocery store, the shelves are full of food, so many different kinds of, milk available, almond milk, hazelnut milk, cow milk, goat milk. And you don't even know I can spend 20 minutes in the milk section. That's capitalism, right? That is an economy that has dynamism and people are rewarded for their work. If you just have the government determining on its own what things should be costing and how much people should make, it all starts without price, without incentives. It all starts to collapse and fall apart. Now, I'm not saying the whole economy will collapse if we continue $600 a week of unemployment insurance. I'm just pointing out that it's a disingenuous position for Democrats to say, oh, well, we just need to extend the 600 again. Republicans are only fighting that because they're condescending and mean. No, Republicans are saying, look, we want to get people money, but we do need people to start going back to work. Why should somebody be able to stay home and collect a paycheck when grocery store workers and truckers and others are out there engaged with their communities and providing a necessary service? Frontline workers, cops, firemen, teachers, not so much. A lot of teachers think that they should be able to stay home and get paid fully. It's pretty amazing as you see this play out. I just don't know what it's going to take. They're also shutting down private schools now increasingly because they don't want this. This is classic cartel activity. The public school sector doesn't want there to be an alternative. Imagine what it looks like if people have the dollars given to them by the federal government that their student would have been receiving per capita to go to public school, and they start setting up private associations of education, private schools, and they don't have terrible COVID problems, and kids are doing well in the schools. I mean, this could destroy the public school cartel, which is an enormous center of power for Democrats because of all the union dues that go to Democrat politicians, forced union dues, and because these public schools are indoctrination centers for left-wing politics and Democrat attitudes and views of history and so on and so forth. That's what happens. That's what's at stake right now with all of this. So I'm sympathetic, very much so. I mean, I have friends who are out of work. I have friends who have lost their jobs, and I know that it's very tough right now. People have been getting $600 a week of unemployment insurance, which is helpful, certainly, and they add that to their state level of uninsurance, and there's certainly some assistance that comes from all of this. But are we going to transition back or not? Locking schools down for another year, endless $600 a week unemployment insurance, all this stuff. Folks, we can't keep doing this. The costs of all of this, we're not going to feel them until we stop, and then we're going to realize what an economic catastrophe this is. Listen to the scientists, the Democrats all shout constantly, as if that's an answer, as if that's a policy, as if that really tells us all that much. Trump has been listening to the scientists, I think, in the case of the Fauci, the mitigation, the measures you got to take, the data. I think far too much listening to the scientists on policy matters. Policy is about what all of us have to live under and deal with. These health experts are largely technicians with knowledge in one area that can tell us factual truths about certain things and a lot of questions that they can't answer. I would remind everybody. They tell us factual truths about certain things, and then what we do with that is policy. What the government puts in place or mandates or decides as a result of that information is policy. We've had the bleed over of the experts as the policy deciders, and then the complaints about how we're not listening to them enough, which is crazy. But we know that there's actually not a principle that's at work here. Dr. Deborah Birx slammed the New York Times because the Times is now on a jihad against the Trump administration relationship with top doctors, Fauci, Redfield, and Birx. We all know Fauci, right? We got Redfield. He's a CDC director. And he said, guys, we got to send people back to school. We got to send kids back to school. This is nuts. So they're going to go after him now, too. Listen to the scientists until the scientists say anything that the Times doesn't like. And then that doesn't count anymore. And then you also have the attack on the relationship between Trump and Dr. Birx. And Trump has even responded to this this morning in a tweet. It got his attention. And this is just, remember, we got a pandemic and they're still playing stupid games. So the Times is writing this stuff. Crazy Pelosi, as Trump calls her, said horrible things about Dr. Deborah Birx, going after her because she was too positive on the very good job we're doing on combating the China virus, including vaccines and therapeutics. In order to counter Nancy, Deborah took the bait and hit us. Pathetic. So Trump is upset with Dr. Birx about this. Pelosi's talking some smack here. Here's what Dr. Birx says. Play 12.
The House Speaker on another network just said that she does not have confidence in either the president or you, Dr. Birx. Do you want to respond?
I have tremendous respect for the Speaker. And I have tremendous respect for her long dedication to the American people. And I think it was unfortunate that New York Times wrote this article without speaking to me. I could have brought forth the data. I provide data every single day with an analysis. The day that they're talking about that I was, quote, Pollyannish, it said there was improvement in the New York Metro. But ongoing cases in Boston and Chicago, a new outbreak in Houston in full logarithmic spread, and new concerning outbreaks in Baltimore, New Haven, and Washington, D.C. This was not a Pollyannish view. I have never been called Pollyannish or non-scientific or non-data driven. And I will stake my 40-year career on those fundamental principles of utilizing data to really implement better programs to save more lives.
Utilizing programs to save lives. Dr. Birx is like, I know what I'm doing here. I've done a good job. Back off. I thought we were supposed to listen to scientists until we're undermining them for political reasons, right? We see the games that the libs play. I understand what they're up to. None of this is surprising to me in the least. But I think it's important that we all understand. We all see very clearly that they're not being honest when they say, listen to scientists. Here's Nancy Pelosi saying it herself. Play clip 7.
Politico reported that in a closed meeting on Friday, you accused Dr. Deborah Birx of the coronavirus task force of spreading disinformation about the pandemic. Is that true? And do you have confidence in her?
I think the president is spreading disinformation about the virus, and she is his appointee. So I don't have confidence there. No.
Does not have confidence. Wait, I thought we were supposed to listen to the scientists. Oh, except for this scientist, because she's not negative enough, you see. They're lying, folks. They just pick and choose as they go through. They are lying to you. This is not about science or scientists. This is about who gets to make determinations about America's future and tells you and can tell you what to do. Who gets power? The great disease of the Democrat Party is its obsession with being in charge of other people in every way, constantly. It's just a psychology of harassment, of obsession with the petty dictatorial delights. People like Cuomo are showing us this every day. There's so much more of it. I over the weekend, I went to play. I played tennis which I like to do. I played in Central Park here in New York, probably the most famous park in New York, one of the most famous parks in the world. They've got some tennis courts there. And it was remarkable to me. I mean, there are people, we're all standing outdoors. We're all about to go play tennis, and everyone has a mask on, and we're outside. And I mean, I'm wearing a mask. It's required to wear a mask. And then because of the way they set this up, everyone has to congregate right before you all walk out of the courts in one tiny area. And I'm thinking to myself, what's more important here? To stay far away from the possible, unlikely, but possible virus breath into the air that people are doing, right? Where they're shooting these aerosolized viruses out of their mouths into the air, or to be wearing this cloth from which people are still breathing through and breathing out viral particles, because they make us all, they packed us all in like sardines before we walk onto the court. You're all close together, waiting there. You got to wait there all close together. And then you get to, why am I wearing a mask if they're going to make me do this? The policies, it doesn't make any sense. I got into an Uber here in New York to go to the court, and I see the guy. He's got AC going. He's got his windows all up, and he sees me get into the car. You know what he does? Pulls his mask up. Guess what that does? Absolutely nothing. This guy is in an enclosed environment. He has the windows up, AC on. If he has COVID, which I'm not worried about, I don't think he does, and if he did, I'll deal with it, right? But he's just filling this car, this enclosed area with COVID with his open mouth breath the whole time. But I get into the car, he pulls up his mask. It's theater, friends. It's theater. There are countless ways in which we see that this is it's absurd. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Look, Dr. Birx recently said that given that the spread is ever... Folks, remember when I told you that contact tracing was a joke, and I was right, because the thing is all over the place. You're not going to trace this. We had a requirement. We weren't going to even enter phase 1 in New York until we had enough tracers in place. Stupidity. A joke. Oh, we're going to trace this. Yeah, sure we are. It's now in rural areas all across the country. Folks, this is spreading everywhere. It's spreading everywhere. But the death rate is much lower as long as seniors are sequestered as needed and protected in different areas of the country. We're going to have a pretty low death rate in this phase of the pandemic. And then when we get through this phase, we're going to be closer to herd immunity, if not be at a degree of herd immunity, so that we don't ever have these kinds of major outbreaks like this again. And if that's what ends up, if herd immunity ends up stopping the outbreak, all this stuff they've made you do, all the masking and all the hospitals and all this stuff, the 15 days that's now heading for 150 days, we're going to be at 150 days the next 2 weeks. 15 days to 150 days to stop the spread. And what we find out is that about 135 of those days were totally unnecessary. All we have to do is basic precautions. Don't go to work if you're sick. Wash your hands, keep your distance from people as you can, and go about living your life. Would have the same outcome. Here's a story that you're not going to see in CNN or any of these mainstream. And when I say not going to see, it might be on the bottom of the website, linked somewhere, and get a total of 5,000 clicks or something over the course of 24 hours. Right? It might be a nothing burger story for them, but I think it's important because we are told that if you have any questions about masking, you're a bad person who doesn't listen to science. The Netherlands is a very sophisticated, highly educated European country with a very high quality of life, excellent health services. And here I just tell you, the Netherlands, the Dutch, right? The Dutch people don't wear masks. They don't wear masks. The only place they wear masks is on public transport because there's no ability to socially distance. By the way, if that were the requirement here, I'd be fine with that. Okay, mass transit, even if it's a little bit helpful, maybe it's worth it there. Dr. Birx said recently, if you live with an elderly relative or somebody, maybe take that extra layer of protection and put a mask on. But for mass, what we've been led to believe recently is that mass masking will stop this pandemic. And people who don't mask constantly are the reason for the pandemic. I want to pound this table as hard as I can. That is bull. The science does not support that, has never supported that. People are nuts. They've lost it over this. It's just not true. It's just not true. We've had mask wearing. I mean, in California, in New York, everyone's wearing masks all the time, everywhere they go. And we've been on lockdown for months and months. And now the disease is spread all over the country. All over the country. Here you go. The head of infectious disease in Zuid-Limburg, which is the region hit hardest by the pandemic in Holland, the Netherlands, same thing, pointed to a Norwegian study, again, very sophisticated, very high level of healthcare and scientific capability, a Norwegian study showing that 200,000 people must wear surgical masks for 1 week to stop a single COVID-19 case. This is the Daily Mail. That's starting to sound about right. Given how ineffective these masks are, what you're telling everybody is we're going to have 1 million people that are going to wear masks to stop 5, 10 COVID cases from happening. Of those 5 or 10 COVID cases, what are the chances that it's somebody who's going to be deathly ill? Very, very small. So the disease is still spreading everywhere despite the mask wearing. And no one's even allowed to talk about it. In the Netherlands, they do not wear masks. Face masks in public places are not necessary based on all the current evidence, said Koen Berends, spokesman for the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands. Quote, there is no benefit and there may even be negative impact. I just want to know, is the national, it's basically the equivalent of the National Health Service of the Netherlands. Are they a bunch of science denying lunatics? Is that what we're supposed to believe? No, they're talking about actual studies, actual study of whether masks work. You know what everybody else relies on? Wear a mask because we say so, because we think it'll help maybe, but we don't know. But wear it or else. Fear. If it was so effective, my friends, if it was really meaningfully effective, look at the way that these viruses spread. You know, they always talk about the R1 number, and if each person infects 2 people, then you get to exponential spread. If the mask was even 50% effective, you'd be able to shut down the pandemic very quickly anywhere you wanted. If the mask is 10% effective, does it really make a difference? No. If 90% of the spread that you would have from an infected person happens even if they have a mask on, then what are we doing? What do we really think the benefit is? And there are drawbacks to it. I was walking around yesterday. It was 90 degrees here in New York. Could barely breathe. It sucks, okay? I hate it. And people that are walking around say, oh, just wear it, do your part. No, idiots. I'm outside. I'm not infected, and I'm not getting infected. And I'm not infecting anybody else. Stop living in a fantasy land of fear. I just want to know why the Dutch are able to go through life like this, and they're fine, and they've had a better health outcome than other European states with severe lockdowns and mask wearing. And this was all in response to a major study. The nation's top scientists have examined key data and research and declared there is no firm evidence to back the use of face coverings. Indeed, they argue that wearing the wretched things may actually hamper the fight against the disease. So the Dutch, who are such anti-science savages, the Dutch are like, guys, look at the data. It does not support mask wearing. It just doesn't. Does anyone care? Does it even matter anymore? Or are people so invested in their belief about the magic of the mask that it doesn't matter what science tells us? Oh, and it's not just the mask wearing, it's also the other lockdown policies. This coming from the Blaze, place that I remember working when it just had a handful of employees. I was there when that thing started. Exclusive. Arizona bar owner charged with crime for violating COVID-19 executive order says the business may not survive. Deborah Wool, this is a story from Aaron Colin. Deborah Wool owns a small neighborhood bar in Apache Junction, Arizona, called Lucky Strikes. Her business has been financially devastated by COVID-19 lockdowns. And on the one day she opened up to offer takeout services in April, she was charged with a crime. As a result, Wool is facing thousands of dollars in fines from the misdemeanor and from citations issued by the Arizona Department of Liquor. With her business barely surviving, she can't afford to pay, and she doesn't believe she did anything wrong. And so now she's facing the possibility of getting arrested over this. Now we're arresting 7-year-old ladies that have run their business for years and years and years because they didn't do things exactly as the state mandated based on what is increasingly obviously capricious and arbitrary junk bullcrap scientific interpretation. Where it's really just fear and control, folks. I mean, the guy, I want to know, someone explain this to me, okay? Because I'm trying to make sure everyone understands really what's at stake here and how bad all this is. Because as far as I'm concerned, in America's new COVID tyranny, a governor could issue an executive order that you must eat vegan as a health emergency, whether it's from heart disease, climate change, take your pick. And if you refuse to comply, that governor could imprison you. Sorry, but it's for your health, they'd say, as they clank the door on your metal cell.